But no, I agree. I think if we're using like, because it's an attention economy,
Mm-hmm.
and the more attention that we can grab, the more eyeballs. And I think everyone, like younger generations, are all about content. Like every other kid wants to be a YouTuber
Yeah.
or a
Or
content
TikTok,
creator
yeah.
or a TikToker, right? They all
That's
want to do it.
part of the reason why I really started to begin with was to try to speak truth to those people that are coming through and up. And I recognize millennials, my generation, I'm like an older millennial, they kind of ruined stuff. Like, we definitely weren't great for Gen Z, and a lot of the parenting styles are not great. But those young people coming through do need truth. And in
Absolutely.
2020 and beyond, my channel, basically started at that time because I was thinking, well, we might be headed toward tyranny here. I need to do something. Let me try to just speak truth into these kids' lives because they need it so much. And
Yep.
really everybody else too. But I especially have a heart for young people now because the challenges are so unique. And I've really worked in my therapy practice for like internet spicy, zesty material addiction to try to be able to help people address that. And really, that took me into like ADHD type mentality, learning how to treat that. And there's just a lot that we're adapting to a stimulus rich environment. And I don't think we're there yet. So the channel hopefully will help people like understand a little bit about, well, your therapist might actually not be that good at what they're doing. And here are some realistic ways that you can actually help yourself, along with, of course, all the political and other truth that we try to do. It's been great. It's a good
Yeah.
thing to. Nowadays, that's the economy. It's a truth economy, and if you can tell the truth, you might be able to at least help that one person that needs it.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, right? It's all about just helping that one that
Mm-hmm.
needs it. I think that's like the most important thing. And someone I recorded with this last week actually has got me thinking something similar to that. They called my podcast and I've never called it that. I've never referred it to as this before. I've never branded it this way, as a ministry for dads. And I'm like,
Yeah.
huh. I mean, it is. That's true, but I've never like made that like my focus, right? Like my intentional focus. Really, I've just tried to focus on like, let me share this story and let me
Yeah.
share this experience. Like, let me share about these two men who, one lost his wife to breast cancer and then had to raise his young children, and then this other one who lost his daughter to breast cancer and, had to keep living on after that. Let me share these important, impactful stories because there's so many other people out there that are also going through the same thing
Yeah.
that are not being seen, heard, validated, um, any of that. They're not. There's none of that going on. Mostly because they're men,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
and they need a space to feel that, but at the same time, like they need truth and be able to talk and relate and to relate to something, to feel something,
Yeah.
because it can be lonely carrying those burdens. It can be
Yeah,
lonely.
it is. We sort of take the slings and arrows of a lot of those things for our children, and that's good and right. But on the other hand, how do we address some of the outgrowth of that without having our own embedded resentments or needs that go unmet? And probably a lot of the gents that I work with now, they've been so stifled for so long that they don't even know how to like assert themselves in their relationships. And if you do that for long enough, I think your partner kind of loses respect for you because you're not assertive. They want a protector. And even if you're doing those things well, you can still completely obfuscate your own needs for long enough that they're like in the middle of their marriages and just don't know how to even say like, I need this from you. And they've been told that it's wrong to do that anyway, so it's really hard to come out with that when you're a dude.
Yeah.
And we've been trained. Women essentially wanted certain things from us, or at least that's what was advertised. Like, you need to be more in touch with your feelings, you need to be more proactive in parenting, you need to do this and this and this. And we did that, for a large part. And I think it changed like dating, it changed marriage, it changed a lot of those courting, all that stuff. And then when it turns around and a lot of people found out that's actually not what we wanted. There's a article by a lady in I think it was The Guardian. Hold on. She, I'm gonna do a review on it. Kate Mulvaney. I think it was in The Guardian, so she's probably British, but she's essentially, she said, feminism, I'm 63, I'm single, I have no children. Feminism is what I carried the whole time, and I realized it broke me. Like, I love women, don't get me wrong, and I think women are beautiful and wonderful and deserve the best from us. But
Absolutely.
the advertisement that said that we were equal in every way is unrealistic, and it's been a lie that's really from the pits of hell, in my opinion. It's been evil because it put men back in original sin territory where we're giving away our agency to our partners, and then it put women in a position that they felt like they had to do everything now. They're earners, they're mothers still, they're then maybe a homemaker too, and everybody realized like this wasn't as advertised. It's really trash, and that's something I've tried to speak truth to the men that I work with, especially so much because it's hard for men. But I can't imagine being 25 now and having to carry that along with like economic factors and who even knows what kind of jobs are going to be available. I just don't know how they address that. And the availability of like spicy material or other entertainment, and you never have a silent moment in your life. Those are not great factors. It's just not, we're not adapted for that.
Yeah. Well, it also doesn't help too when you see these um these young women who are probably, probably late 20s, early 30s, somewhere mid 20s to mid 30s, right? That are on social media, and there's this teacher. Her name is Rebecca Rogers, I think. She'll never see this, so if someone tags her, fine, go ahead. Um, but she had gotten divorced. She had always posted about her husband, and then all of a sudden she's just like getting divorced, kind of because she like wanted to.
Oh, yeah,
It
I
seemed
saw
like, and it was
that.
like a rah feminism. And
Yep.
then she post within the last few days, she posted a video of a family that had. It's like, what's the scariest thing you've ever seen? And then it's like it was 10 kids in 10 years, and she goes, "Ew, that 10 kids, 10 years." Like, come on, like, there. Yes,
I
that's
thought we were
that's not
supposed to root for all women. Why would that
right.
be an ick for you if you're such a cheerleader for women's rights and whatnot? That means you need to accept the full spectrum of what it is that women want. And quite frankly, I don't
But
think
they
that
don't
this.
though. But
They
they
don't.
don't because they only want it to be on my side. So you need to
On
be on the side
liberalism.
of, yeah.
Yeah.
You need to be on the side of girl boss, no
Yep.
kids, no husband, um, living your best life, being a hoe,
Because what
and
if they said, like, well, there's a woman in Saudi Arabia who wants to be part of like a sister wives situation and all that and wear a burqa or, all those things? You would say that that's still, we're not allowing that. Like that's not part of the feminism project.
yeah.
So it's all or nothing. I think J.K. Rowling has been an interesting
Oh, she has over the
voice
last
in the
like year or
last
so.
several months. Yeah, and really, she seems to be a witness for common sense from a feminist perspective, which I appreciate. If you're going to be at least be ideologically consistent, and I
Yeah.
think that she has been that, and I can almost, in a way, root for that brand of feminism because I think that there is a lane that it remains in, and I don't think that it's a maybe she still would do this, but I don't think it's a abuse toward men in her instance. But when it's just a veiled like wrapping paper for liberalism, it really just doesn't hold water. And that we're seeing the results of it. I mean, the truth is undefeated. There's natural law that's going to encourage the consequences of some of these behaviors. And my job is well protected because I'm a therapist, because it is making people miserable, hand over fist.
Yeah. And if you forget, J.K. Rowling does have several children. Um, she was married twice. She was married once from 92 to 93, but then got married again. It looks like in 2001, and she's been with him since then,
Oh,
so
good.
24 years.
I like to hear that.
Um, and the top headline when I Googled it is a Reddit thing that says friendly reminder that J.K. Rowling's kids and her husband enable her TERFY opinions. Like, okay, they're supportive. I mean, the apple doesn't fall that far from the tree.
What do you want them to do?
Do you want them to go against their
What?
mom?
Yeah, what
Like,
precisely are you suggesting they do?
yeah, what do you want?
Besides,
No, but I
she's the
think she is.
breadwinner. I mean, what? The empires, they're supposed to take it down from the inside. Like, they're the rebel
Yeah,
faction. Come on.
yeah. And it's like, you guys are still reading Harry Potter books, still buying them. You guys still have them
Yep.
on your Kindle, so don't pretend like you don't love J.K. Rowling and her work. Because we all do.
Even
We all
Emma
do.
Watson came to grips with that in the last week and said that she basically gave like her unrequited support for J.K. Rowling again because it's the ideology that she was withholding or holding was going, it's on the decline. So she tried to give like a half-hearted public apology, and J.K. Rowling was basically like, no, I still want to protect you because I see you as that little girl, but and there was much to follow. So I'm really grateful that some of the cooler heads have made it through the last 10 years, because in my industry, people are insane. Not the customers, the people who I work with. The people, well, they might have mental health going on too, but they have been captured. They've gone so far off the reservation that it is impossible to recognize. And I've only been in my industry 13 years, and it's already shifted so far that I just don't. First of all, I don't recognize some of the lack of common sense that we're placing on things like, dysphoria, and there's just so many ways that I'm like, I didn't get into the industry of therapy for this. I didn't get
Yeah,
in here to convert to a worldview that is, I believe, not always helpful to people and sometimes extremely harmful. The therapy culture in general has broken people's brains. And I see so many kids going dark on their parents because of supposed trauma that they've actually just implanted in there because they talk to their therapist so persistently about their childhood that they've been convinced that it was worse than it actually was.
yeah. No, and well, one thing that I noticed too, even on that same kind of spectrum, is I work with a lot of kids, a lot of families, and I do a lot of, initial information gathering and things. And one thing I get a lot and that I see a lot is the parents making their issues the kids' issues.
Mm-hmm.
And it just rolls right into the kid. It's like, oh, well, yeah, well, they're just like me in this way, and then I did that, so they must have been affected by that. I'm affected, they're affected. And so that's all these kids get all the time. It's just that same story of, well, um, my mom went through this, so I'm impacted, um, and stuff. And it's the same story every single time. Um,
Yeah,
and
it's
it's rough.
amazing how much we cycle those through. Even if you would like to not, you may recognize the issues that you don't want to pass down to your children, but you will catch yourself saying and acting like your parent at some point. And yeah, we really, even if we're aware, we sort of just repeat the nostalgia of our childhoods.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's rough. And I think even along with that too, I work with a lot of schools, and I hear from schools a lot too that there's a deficit. You can say what you want about us millennials and our parenting, but the generation after us, what is that, Gen Z?
Yeah.
They're struggling too,
Mm-hmm.
like hard. Um, I mean, unfortunately, some of them had babies during COVID,
Yeah.
and that just really rocked it. I will say, like, COVID babies, they are. I need a study on all the COVID babies that are in
Mm-hmm.
kindergarten now because they're just entering kindergarten, and I need them studied between kindergarten and fifth grade to see where all the deficits are because there's
Yeah.
so many. in behavior, there's so many in listening, there's so many in emotional regulation, there's so many in social skills, there's so many with parenting at home, there's so many with attachment, there's so many with um, anxiety, worry, not listening,
Yeah.
not caring, being defiant, disobedient. Like it's just a whole hodgepodge. Like everything you think like you don't want a child to be is not all kindergarteners, but a lot of kindergarteners out there right now. And it's not just an isolated problem to Washington State or the U.S. It's probably well beyond that, like worldwide.
Sure, the Western
Um,
world. Yeah.
yeah.
The one harm that I can imagine was automatic because COVID wasn't necessarily going to be a big problem physically for young children, but wearing a mask while you're attempting to communicate with them is sort of a consequence that automatically. So, in order to avoid a hypothetical illness that they don't have yet, you're giving them the automatic consequence of making their learning, that much slower in terms of reading facial recognition, emotional
Hmm.
regulation, therefore social cues to a generation that's already struggling with things like autism spectrum disorder. Now you're going to give away 2 or 3 years of the social cues that would have ordinarily come when they have, a parent whose face they can see. So we automatically gave children those consequences for a hypothetical illness that they didn't have yet in order to try to rescue the parents from getting sick. It is the complete inversion of what it's supposed to be a parent. That I need you, I'm going to wear a mask so that, and you can't do what you ordinarily do so that I don't get sick. That is, it boggles my mind and it makes me want to die a little on the inside that so many of us, not myself, but so many of us were willing to give away, multiple years of our children's parenting and wellness. And if anyone at any point sends their child to a school with people who are still masking during any time, flu season or not, take them out. My wife and I homeschool and they go to a hybrid school. The reason we chose that school was because I was invited to speak there during COVID and I walked in and no one had a mask on. It was the most glorious sight I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, Lauren, I don't care what we have to do. That's the school we're sending our kids to. And now she's a teacher there.
Very
It's a
cool.
Christian private school too, but they go like half of the time because it's a homeschool the rest of the time.
Yeah.
So the homeschool homesteading movements, those are all wonderful
I think those are
alternatives.
really cool too. I think they're so important. They're so important for our kids. Like, yes, they're and there's nothing they don't get from it, right? Like, yes, they can still get socialization because that's when you have a co-op that you attend,
Hmm.
or you do a hybrid option. So you still get that exposure to other kids, peer-to-peer relations, peer-to-peer interactions. But the education is better too, I think, because
Yeah, well,
it's
that
not
we care more about our children than the teacher does, even if they're
exactly.
great. And on the, I've been thinking a lot about like what the value in that traditional education is, and basically being able to read and the socialization part of it, but a lot of the social things I don't want them a part of. Like anything that has to do in the Snapchat spectrum can go.
Hmm.
Like I don't need them to have FOMO about that. So basically, the ability to read and then 10 other things that I can teach them that the school will not, like how to balance your budget, how to interact with systems in ways that will make you successful, how to make a phone call. Like our children are coming out of school incapable of so many important things, and if they know how to read when their homeschooling is accomplishing that goal, then what else can they really learn in a traditional school that you actually apply outwardly? The math that they take you through, useless, mostly useless in the real world. Sciences, well, if that's your interest, maybe that's useful. But, the best you can do with a math degree is teach math. So, what are we, like, there's very little real world application for so much of what goes on there. I just want them to be able to read. I just want them to be able to, relate to their peers. And that you can get in a homeschool option, of course, a co-op or other ways. There's a million other ways.
Yeah, no, and it's so important. If you can do it, if you can make a way, make a way, find a way, do it. You mentioned, making a phone call and stuff, and I wanted to share because I heard that home phones, landline, are making a comeback.
They are, yeah.
Um, there's this really cool site called Tin Can Kids, um, and they're corded phones. They make calls over internet. They have no apps, no texting, no stranger danger. So parents model all of it, and no surprises. So you set up quiet hours, you enable do not disturb, and they look like share the screen because I think these are really cool. Tin Can, if you're watching this, go ahead and reach out to your
Sponsor.
boy,
Yep.
reach out to your boy. No free. Uh, Hashtag not a sponsor. But no, I think these are cool. So they're $75 for the line for the phone itself. Which talk about a price jack. But
That's great.
after that, it's free calling because you're calling over Wi-Fi. So really, it's not free, but it's whatever. So you can call other tin cans. You can call friends and family for $99 a month. Tin cans, things like that. So this I think is just really cool. They have the
I love
classic
that.
tin can flashback,
Yeah,
and
look
then
at that.
the tin can it's corded. It's so cool. And even with that too, there's this other really cool one that I'm a fan of. If you are needing to get your kids a phone, I'm a big fan of this company. It's called
Oh,
Gab,
yeah.
and again, not a sponsor. Feel free to reach out, Gab. But they offer like different steps, right? Like 5 to 12, 9 to 14, 13 to 18, with these preloaded phones with these preloaded apps. Um, and they just come on. So 5 to 12, they get the smartwatch.
Yeah.
9 to 14, we'll get our first one right here, and then 13, 14 plus, we're gonna go to the big one with all the app stuff included. But these are so safe.
That's a good idea.
Notice it doesn't have any social media. It has Duolingo of all things, chess,
Hmm.
dominoes, I guess, kick. So it has like some ways for like messaging and things like that. I'm sure you can add or remove
Mm-hmm.
um, phones as well, but they're iPhone 4s. Um, so they're instead of having 16s and 17s,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna have an iPhone 4,
I love
and they can cry
that.
about it, which is fine. And yeah, super cheap. 854 a month for 24 months plus the cellular plan. Plans for every stage. Apps they want, management you need. So it comes with just these parent enable apps, which I think is cool. Kick, I'm a little skeptical of. I don't unless that's not Kick, but
Hmm.
I think these are just really cool. I think they're cool. They have to request an app, or we can request an app, um, and then they'll consider it. But they only come preloaded with these, and those are the only ones that are going to be on there. So I think it's really cool, music, things like that. But this is what
Yeah.
we need more of, right? Between this, tin can, because these are the things that keep our kids safe. These are the things that
Yeah.
reserve our kids' childhood and keep
Yep.
them in as a child for longer. They preserve the innocence that is our kid.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important because we want them to be kids for as long as they can. They don't need to grow up, and they shouldn't be forced to grow up too fast.
Absolutely. They say if you want your kid's childhood to be over, hand them an unlocked smartphone. I think we really are going to be looking, but we were talking at my in-laws' house today about candy cigarettes. You remember when candy cigarettes
Yeah.
were a thing, and
Yep.
how cool that was and everything. And then the ridiculousness of like children mimicking smoking and how we should have known better. I really think like a toy phone or a smartphone, legit smartphone in the hands of a kid is going to be viewed in some not so distant future as the cigarette of its age, where we just are like, this was insane. And actually, I probably would rather my kids smoke. I don't want them to do either. But to hand
Right.
them an unlocked smartphone could literally traumatize them, ruin their future. Ruin
And
how
yeah,
they
because they
see
can get onto everything and see anything and
and
everything and
be
anyone. And
predated against. So there's just there's almost no argument for it. You need
yeah,
to reach your child. I understand that can be accomplished in a myriad of ways. You want to track them, okay, fair. But the risk taking, again, Jonathan Haidt says, we've given the risk taking from physical in person conflict resolution onto internet, peer to peer, long distance, and it's just not good. Even if
Yeah.
they're not interacting with adults, the 24/7 access, all those other things is just, it's crushing children. I think I'm not, maybe I'm, you know, taking this to its logical endpoint, but I think we could see tech free villages, towns, cities where they go completely dark on things like smart technologies, especially as AI gets more and more Orwellian and the ability to track people gets worse and worse. I could easily see there being cohorts of like Christians or the heck the Amish do this already,
Yeah, the
and
Amish are already
I
doing
don't
it.
think they're too far off. I think that is a reasonable alternative, especially as AI begins to scare people a little bit more, and there could be like actual overtaking of some of the human agency. I think people will be like, I'm gonna go live over here. It's actually, I think it's been referred to as the Boniface option, where the church essentially just takes themselves out of the public square. If it's just going horribly, they take themselves out of the public square and just go dark, and sort of like try to wait it out, like almost like a bomb shelter for the culture. You're just like on the side now, and hope and pray that you can build a community that will survive whatever is going on outside. And I think Saint Boniface was uh, maybe one of the popes. I don't want to misquote. Sorry, my
No, you're good.
Catholic friends, but he's a church father of old, and I think he was fairly involved in like church governance and stuff. But they didn't actually have to take the Boniface option during his day. But it wasn't long after that, like the crusade, the counter punch to the Islamic armies that were coming in was happening. So they probably really did think like, we're gonna have to just go on an island and wait this out.
Hmm. Or it's like, what's that series of movies? Like a thousand days or a thousand. What are those movies? Where like they're
The
on an island. There's like a disease on the mainland, or they were like waiting it out.
I think I've heard. Yeah, there was one that was supposedly really good. I haven't watched it. I'm trying to get my wife to watch The Lord of the Rings with me tonight. Um, I, that's like, I'm just a millennial. What can I say? There's like The Matrix, Lord of the Rings, Braveheart. There's only like 18 movies that I ever watched. They're all classics.
Yeah. No, I don't know why I can't think of 28 years later.
Oh,
That's the
yeah.
movie right there. So
Yeah,
28
they
years
start with
later.
28 days later and then it
Yep.
goes up from there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's, I mean, not gonna lie, but I think it's really, unfortunately, accurate to where like society goes. But then other like outside countries are still living their own happy lives. They're all still moving on. Like in the 28 years later, not for like a
Yeah.
spoiler alert or anything, but there was this group of
Great
soldiers that
Britain
came
with,
in.
yeah.
Yeah, they
Hmm.
came in, but they all still had their smartphones, but they couldn't connect because there was no like towers on that island or that mainland, and it was just the whole thing. And the people on the village were like, "Whoa, what is that?" kind of thing because they were
Yeah.
just quarantined for so long, and they built their
I'm
own
good with that.
civilization.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with that, but for today, I'm gonna fight for the culture in ways that
Absolutely.
I can at least say that to my children that I did something when, and honestly, it seems petty because all I'm doing is casting words onto the internet, saying words to people in an office, and trying to make a difference in those ways. I know there are people much braver than I that are doing, political wrangling or even kinetic things with like ice and all those. But words have been the change agent that has made the most impact. You can talk about wars, yes, but the words of like Winston Churchill have carried much further than what happened during the Battle of the Bulge, in Germany or in France. The kinetic warfare had much less impact than the words of the people who were trying to inspire courage in others. So And it's good to know that other people think the way that you do, especially in our like isolating era that we're in. It's nice to hear that, like, well, there are other people, even therapists, that aren't ridiculous, or there are people that can be conservative and still, hold two thoughts in their head at once, and you're not alone. I mean, not everyone that I speak with is obviously conservative, but I think that um, we've been really isolated. And during like 2020, it was an especially isolating time. And just hearing that somebody else was thinking, like, oh, this is really bad. I'm kind of freaking out. I think we needed that during that era. Hopefully, the YouTube media landscape and Rumble and X and all the others, your wonderful platform here. Hopefully, those will make a difference in pushing the truth and the culture in a direction that it'll be honorable again. In a way that we haven't probably had in a few decades now.
Yeah, speaking of pushing the culture, where is it? I wanted to highlight this. So, Kentucky's doing something really cool. Um, I know you're a little bit closer in proximity to Kentucky than
Very
I am.
close. Mm-hmm.
So divorces across Kentucky are down 25% after a new law set the standard to 50-50 custody if you have children together.
Oof, that's wonderful.
I know people aren't ready for that conversation yet, but
I'm ready.
um, no, I know. But it's like there's like that's just common sense
I
at
love
at the
that.
core. So
Yeah.
I mean, because that's what a lot of women do, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't a bash on women episode. I think we both expressed our appreciation and love and everything for women and the women in our lives, our wives especially. But um, a lot of women use their kids as a pawn in
Sure.
marriage and then use them in the divorce process, and they get dragged through it, and then they get alienated from their dad, and um, all
It's
sorts of problems start to come
incentivized,
after.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's financially incentivized. And when the
Yep.
security that would have ordinarily been provided within the marriage can be cast onto the post divorce, and you still have that financial security, of course, you're incentivizing people to take the easy way out, because there will be times, just word to anyone who's not married out there will be times where you're like, man, this is really hard. It's hard to cohabitate with people. It's hard to, will there ever be a time where we'll have 15 minutes again? Or like, there's some times where I want to be alone. Is that ever going to happen? And those moments are your opportunity, if you are without honor, to just check the box and just walk out. And if you knew that you would be financially provided for and that you would potentially have full access to your children, whatever you wanted, that is incentivizing. The purpose of a system is what it does. The results of our no fault divorce system have promoted divorce. And so that, whether or not it was the intention, it is what the results have been. So I believe, because my parents are divorced, and I've of course been directly privy to all the damage and fallout of that.
Hmm.
I was like on my way out; they were kind of empty nesters, but it affected me as an 18-year-old. Still, like a grenade went off in my life.
Hmm.
It is a terrible thing to have to try to, dissolve this family structure, and even if the parents aren't perfect and perfectly in love and don't have a perfect marriage, you cannot tell me that that child is better off. If that is the premise that of with which anyone operates from, they must rethink their worldview, because children will not be better off if you're happy, because you won't be happy, for one thing, if you can't maintain happiness in a place where you actually have a partner and where you have support and where you're not the only one doing everything. Then you're not going to be happy when that is true. You're not going to be happy when you have to do all the cleaning, all the cooking, all the bill paying, everything, and raising children. That will not make you happier. It is up to us as married people to find our peace, because happiness is fleeting and it's really not the goal. It's not the goal of marriage to make you happy. We must find our peace within the moment, not the happiness, because happiness is a misnomer. And marriage is to give us, for one, exposure to a relationship that looks like Christ and his bride, and understand what it looks like to serve your bride and be able to provide, protect, and be a good security for them. And then secondly, the purpose is to raise children. So glorifying God and raising children, at least one and one A. Not every married couple can have kids or whatever, but and I pray that more of them can and do, honestly. But
Yep.
none of the top three, at least, are our own personal happiness. But if you can serve those first couple points on the hierarchy, you will derive happiness from it, because the meaning that's embedded in it is so much stronger than brunches without children in some cafe where you got hammered the night before and slept with someone. Like that, there is no comparison. There is no comparison. When I have my 8 month old baby in my arms, the rest of the world, if they think they're happier than I am in that moment, they're out of their mind. I hold her in as many times, as much as she wriggles and tries to escape. I hold her as much as I possibly can, because that is so much fervently more meaningful. I wouldn't even use the word happy. It is so much more meaningful than anything I can get with lattes in travel. This is the big one, right? People are like, well, if I settle down, well, I won't be able to go to Mali or Bora Bora, and I won't be able to see Ibiza, or whatever it is that they think they're going to do. I got news for them. All those singles, the young people, you're probably not going to do that anyway. Honestly, whether you don't have a family or you do, you're probably not going to do all that traveling, because it's hard, and if you're not courageous enough to start a relationship and have that, then maybe you're not going to travel either. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. At least
Yep.
my wife, God bless her, I know that when I need to or want to pursue something in my career, I have the full weight of her backing in that decision, and she'll be like, yeah, tell me what you need and go for it. I believe in you. You know, I don't know how people get by without that. And I know not every spouse is like that. They're not all supportive and perfect, but take the dance with the dame that brung you, as they say. See, we are close to Kentucky. I can prove it. I said something very Kentucky cheesy,
Something Kentucky.
but you have to take the. There might be a local person, woman, man, for you that is within spitting distance of where you are. That's so much more tangible and real and attainable than Bora Bora or brunches in Italy or whatever it is that you think you're going to do when you push the marriage and family aside.
Yeah, no, 100%. And even with all that too, you mentioned like financial support, like still being there in the financial security. The cool thing when it comes to 50-50 in most cases is that there's little to no child support. And so
Yeah,
that incentive is gone too. Hence
yeah.
why it's just, if you can make it work, to make it work.
I
Um,
love Kentucky so
so,
much. They have some of the best legislators. Thomas Massey's down there, and oh, that other one, Rand Paul. Between the two of
mm,
them, they're very libertarian. But between the two of them, I don't know how they ever get any legislation passed in Kentucky, because they just like to block the government from doing everything, which I very much appreciate. Grind the
yep,
gears, keep it from spending my money. But
yep,
yeah, we still have Jim Jordan here in Ohio. So and actually, I'm in JD Vance's hometown. So
yep. Very
I
nice of
met
that.
him on a couple occasions. He's pretty solid. I could do away with some of the tech billionaire stuff, but other than that, he's a nice guy.
Yeah. I actually had a weird dream about JD Vance
That's
a
strange.
couple weeks ago. Okay, it wasn't like anything like that, Casey. I had a dream about 2028. And the ticket for
Okay.
2028 for the Republicans was J.D. Vance, obviously. But do you want to know who his VP was in this dream?
Let's have it. If you're right, mark this episode. Date,
Please.
please do.
At
Yeah.
10:19 at 6 p.m.
That's
in
right.
2025, the dream I had was J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth
Oh, yeah. I could see
for the
that.
2028 ticket.
See, I thought
And
you were
they,
going to go way out
and
of the
they,
box.
no, and they won,
Oh, yeah, they're going to win. Yeah.
which was,
I I
which
don't
like,
know. I understand that we might be in a severe period of civil unrest between
oh
now
yeah,
and then, which
yeah,
obviously we've already seen. But the hegemonic forces in the country, at least in the presidential, appeared very much to be wind in the sails of the Republican Party. And I would make this case: Republicans are not perfect, nor are they even great at times. But we, at least as men of God, we do need to interact with political systems, for one. Anybody
yeah,
who takes the third way, Gavin Ortland, you can go in between the two parties. That's just a liberal argument veiled underneath biblical precedent. But there isn't a precedent for it. But anyway, so you do need to be politically active. And if you're a man of God or you believe the Bible could be true, you can't vote Democrat. Because
yeah.
I know, sorry to anyone. I guess we're alone here today, Jay.
Yep.
Ordinarily, I would feel bad saying that with, I don't know how the other men in the panel usually stand, but um, there's just so much that is fundamentally evil, in my opinion, on the Democrat side in terms of like um, castrating children, having like Planned Parenthood at the national convention. That says everything that I need to know. I don't know, how much. There was like a vasectomy thing at the plan or at the DNC convention. I just find
Yep.
it to be evil. And really, the invitation of evil when it came after the wake of the Charlie Kirk shooting, they cannot rally behind moderating those views because a large part of their base has actually come to believe what they've said, which is conservatives, Christians, people, normal people, people with children, people who like to get married, people who work hard, people who are on time. All those people are racist, evil bigots, and they must. And granted, that's the media class or the people on TikTok, maybe, but there's just a lot that you cannot be aware and lucid and vote for the Democratic Party. So I think Republicans suck. Democrats are evil. So
Mhm.
you have your choice, but we still do need to make a choice. And I could probably go for an hour on what I don't like about Republicans as well. But they generally are not trying to kill people.
Oh
They
yeah.
may be asking them to go back to a country of origin, but they're not trying to kill them in the process, which, thinking about like the population decline, there's been like 30 million children killed by Planned Parenthood in a very short time, like in my lifetime. And a lot of them are actually African American children. And I just find that to be abhorrent. I
Yep.
mean,
A
it
lot of
wouldn't
them.
matter what race they were, but the obvious targeting, even of a race. And Margaret Sanger, the founder, said that was her project. She wanted, to take out certain parts of the
Hmm.
populace. So I don't know how we get to a place where that is something that people will vote for again, unless, because I was a Democrat, bro. I mean, 16 years ago anyway, when I started voting, I was certainly voting Democrat then. But I don't know how we get back to a place where like they can recapture normality, because that's really all. They would win a lot of elections if they were just like normal, or they told people who were the
Well,
craziest part of their base to
I
just
think they
keep it
really just
silent.
need to do, yeah, they really just need to do common sense legislation, right? Like, let's
Yeah,
look at, so two things. The common sense would say, look at the no kill protest yesterday. Um,
yeah,
Among the sponsors was the Communist Party USA, Democrat Socialists of America, several openly far left organizations. I mean, you're calling the left evil. I mean, George Soros' organization was a big
yeah,
sponsor. Elizabeth Warren.
The Open Society. Yeah, I
Open
know about 'em.
Society,
Yeah.
Doug Emhoff. Um, like my goodness, like
Yeah,
come on, people. If you and then I
they
just love how
so
Trump responds to it.
yeah, he's been a bit of a meme lord the last few weeks. I have to say
Yeah,
that I just honestly, I don't want to wave the white flag here, but the communists did win in a lot of ways. There was a guy named Antonio Gramsci that said that because communism got stifled in the Cold War, that they needed to start the long march through the institutions, which they have captured darn near all major institutions. You know, whether it was like Hollywood, the tech sector, you know, major businesses making very communist declarations and communist, you know, essentially propping up the Democrat Party, which is moving socialist. At least in like Great Britain, they have like they call it out. They say they're openly socialist. You know, like their whole party is
yeah,
socialist. I
yeah.
would
They don't
prefer
hide it.
that.
They don't hide
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
let's
let's just
just
call it what it is.
have it out.
We're
You
the
know,
Democratic
yeah,
Party of communism and socialism. Let's just get
yeah.
it out there.
And
But
I'm
going back to my
okay with
point,
that. We'll fight it out on real terms
yeah,
then when
let's
you
call a
call it
spade a
what it is.
spade.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's call it what it is. Call it spade a spade. But I think also, I was listening to yesterday when I was gaming a little bit. I was listening to Joe Rogan, and he had Mariana Van Zeller on. Great episode, but they talk so deeply about like the ICE and immigration, and I think it's important for us that who are conservatives or Republican have voted multiple times for Trump and whatnot. We can call out we have to be able to call out the bad, right? We can celebrate the good, but we also need to call out the bad or the extreme or the things that we don't agree with. And it's okay to do that. It really is. You don't have to have full party pledge alliance. If they do
Right.
something you don't agree with, guess what? You can say, "Oh, I don't agree with that." Cool. Um, and so I really agreed with Van Zeller and Rogan on this show because they were talking about immigration and the biggest win that Trump could have when it comes to immigration and the ICE raids and everything is let's fund it a little bit more once the government opens back up and they stop. Democrats don't want vasectomies and trisectomies and transgender surgeries in Zimbabwe
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
But like, let's really fund the ICE raids to a purpose to where they can find because you can locate anyone in 2025. You can. If they really wanted to, they can go and locate the criminals. They can go and locate the worst of them, the murders, the rapists, the thieves, and deport those ones back to the country. But let's also fund and reform the process to becoming a citizen. Because if we're
Yeah.
taking, and this is one part I agree with Joe Rogan, and I've always kind of agreed with this too, is if we're taking the person that's been here 25 years working on a farm, and they're fully assimilated to the U.S., um, and you try to send them back to Guatemala that they haven't been for 25 years, that's setting them up to absolutely die,
Yeah.
right? But
It's interesting.
let's make a pathway forward for that set of people because there's a lot of them, and if you can put a pathway forward for those set of people, that gets them citizenship. Because then, if they get citizenship, then they get a social security number. Guess what? If they get a social security number, now they're paying income taxes. And guess what? If they're paying income taxes before Trump abolishes them, fingers crossed, that's more money to fund the government as a whole.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, I
forces
think
it forces the hand of all these companies and farms and
yeah, that's
agriculture
it.
business that are underpaying
Yeah.
them under the table. That then they're open about it too. That's the crazy thing is that those companies are open about it. Well, we're like, yeah, we need cheap labor. That's the
It
only way
really
we
is
can
the
survive.
elite
But it's
project. Yeah, I think there was a one of the lawmakers who was like, "Well, you think this is all cute and everything, but now who's gonna clean your house?" And they think that that's like some great own, and I'm like, young lady, I clean my own house.
right.
Like, I
Honestly.
really think that it's the elite project is the
Hmm.
immigration, especially this sloppy, and they misplaced 320,000 juveniles, people under the age of 18 that came into the country that were the ones that were captured at the border and then allowed to come in and
Hmm.
return to their hearings for figuring out whether they qualified for amnesty or not. That is
Yeah.
the evil of a system that's built, to do exactly what it did, which was import cheap labor. But
Yeah.
that's evil It's children for another thing, which everyone should agree that cannot
That's bad.
happen, not in a good free society. And you have to do better. We have to do better than that. If we
Absolutely.
are going to allow immigration, I like that you said assimilation because I think um, I don't want to be too spicy, but there's a theme park close to where we live, and we've gone down there a lot this year, which was great. And lucky me, I guess. But the amount of immigrants from the Middle East is alarming, and I understand that there's a selection bias at a theme park because the people who can afford to go there, for one, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So certainly there are reasons why it might be more or less at a place like that. But what it really is to be American is an important question that we should be asking ourselves. So, in the way that like Matt Walsh said, "What is a woman?" 5 years ago or whatever, and he made that movie. We need a similar project that's just what is an American, because
Yeah.
as we in our new in the new era that we're in, and especially if there's going to be like a conservative rally for the next 40 years, which I actually believe there is, we need to ask and answer that question. What does it mean to be an American? Because
Yeah.
I am willing, as I have always been, to take in individuals that are willing to work and they want access to the American dream. When I was traveling to Zambia consistently, there were the men that we kind of resided with while we were there that there is no greater dream in sub-Saharan Africa than to become an American. And I completely understand why, after seeing the conditions and some of the difficulties that they have down there. And I would talk to there's one gentleman named Peter, and I was like, well, why can't you come? Because he was like a good musician and he was, trying to launch his music career and stuff. And he's like, it's impossible. I was like, that's not great. I want Peter to be able to come because he wants nothing more than that. And it would have been
Yeah.
impossible for him. It's a financial burden that's not viable. But assimilation, um, I think English is a good way to start that. If we can all be on the same page and communicate with one another, I know there's technologies that are making that easier, but it demonstrates a certain respect for the society that you live in that you would go and learn the language. When I was traveling to Africa, they had like 70 languages in the country we were in, and I still tried to learn as much as I could about those languages, even though I'd only been there 5 times, because that's showing and demonstrating respect for the culture that you're going to. And going as
Hmm.
Christians, we wanted to be as respectful as we could. Please, if someone can take that mentality into our country, I think assimilation becomes easier, but also we can talk about, you are an American. You might have a hyphen, you could be Mexican American or Canadian American for that matter. Actually,
Yeah.
English American, we need to take refugees from England right now. But I
Absolutely.
would love to see what it looks like for us to answer the question, what does it mean? Who are we? Yet again, like it's been reinvented over and over. Who are we today? And what does that look like? If we are to assimilate, what does that mean? What are we
Yeah.
assimilating to? Content creator culture? Because that's
Yeah.
not worth assimilating to. No wonder people stay in their own cohorts when they come if that's all we have to offer.
Yeah. No, true. And I think another point to reference this podcast again is we're talking about this, right? The what Joe had mentioned, Joe Rogan had mentioned. I'm on a first name basis with him, obviously.
Yeah, you're
Call me Joe.
tight.
Um, but one thing he mentioned too was like the only difference between me and the man who's been here for 40 years is that I was born here.
Mhm.
But he's just as American as I am. He eats at the same restaurants, shops at the same stores, works a different job, but still works, and works out at the same gym as I do. The only difference is I was born here and he wasn't, and that was it.
Mhm.
It's like that's the differentiating thing. So I think you're right. Like we have to, that has to be defined, and I think it absolutely has to be defined before 2028.
Yeah.
Because if we can define that over the next 2 years and work towards that towards the midterm, And then if we have some momentum on maybe some really positive, great reform come the
Hmm.
midterm, I think we capture more seats, and then we're set up even stronger for 2028 to finish that reform going into the next presidency and to
Yeah.
have a big talking point, because I think that's going to be a major talking point is immigration
Yeah, of course.
over the
It's
next
everything.
3 years. And then, yeah, and I think it has to be reformed. There has to be a pathway to citizenship. There has to be, something reasonable. I mean, it's not reasonable to go and take a family who's literally going to check on their asylum status or their hearing that they've been waiting for 3 years, and then deport them. Like, that's not reasonable. That doesn't make sense. Or to take the family and the mother and deport them to Guatemala. They take her medication and then she ends up dying while she's down there, kind of thing, because they got deported, kind of thing. And it's just, you have to call it for what it is. It's not right. It's really bad. It's evil in some ways as well. That use of power, and we have to be able to call it out on our side, just the same as we would call it out on the other side. Um, and
Yeah.
we shouldn't have an open border. That's not what I'm saying. Don't open the border, but we absolutely have to have a proper pathway to citizenship. If someone comes here, they get asylum, which is legal. They get asylum. They need to have a reasonable set of time before they have their hearing, that they can have their case heard and all that. It has to be a linear,
Yeah.
repeatable process that's simple and easy. And the thing is, it's doable. They could write it. I could go and write a bill on ChatGPT right now, and
Right.
boom, there it is. It's
I
what's
wonder
possible.
what is a so I wonder what the asylum claimant has to demonstrate, because I know that economic asylum would be easy to claim no matter where you came from, almost, other than like
Yeah,
another
they have to claim like
40% of the
some kind
countries.
of like threat to their life or threat to their
Okay, yeah, sure.
livelihood
And if they
or
went back, maybe too. Yeah,
yeah.
I think that we should not answer evil for evil.
No.
So, I think that the wave that came through was evil. And I don't think that we should answer that for evil. I also am very careful. Probably, I think that Rogan probably got a little, he got more buddy buddy with Trump than he was comfortable with. And I think that
Yeah.
he probably wanted to distance himself a little, because we knew that this would happen, that one of the conduct things that Trump conducted while in office would put some of those moderates off. And it would put some,
Hmm.
but, we do need remigration on the part of a lot of people that
Hmm.
came through when it was just free and clear. So, how do we operate that in a way that's sound? That's really difficult, and you're asking a government which is already broken to perform in ways that that it doesn't typically
Yeah.
do.
No, and it's not going to happen, unfortunately. That's why one thing that they said is that we need in that same episode is that they mentioned is we need a Martin Luther King, and it sucks because we had Martin Luther King, we had Charlie Kirk,
Yeah,
and they took him out. All the evidence
yeah,
points to that was a targeted hit. Everything points to it. Everything points to it. If you listen to Candace Owens, I think she's been great at covering it.
interesting. Yeah,
Take it for what you will. I think her series has been really good and insightful. But even if you just look at other perspective, other creators that are going into it, the other um, internet sleuths and whatnot, it was a hit. I think we all can admit that at this point. But it's like we had we had a 31-year-old man who was 4 years away, so probably 2032 from possibly running for president, and then absolutely changing the game, big time. But that was a force for good. That was a force for
yeah,
truth, and they took
yeah.
him out. And there's nobody else out there. There's others that are
Not like him.
similar.
Not like him, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think his youth was probably the thing that puts him head and shoulders above a lot of the other people that could have done similar.
Hmm.
But his desire to take his messaging to young people was also put him. And there are people who speak to young people in it like a one-off campus, hall speech, but not like man on the ground, doing it with the people. And when he started, he was holding a sign, some scrawny 18-year-old. And then if you see like the rally at the time where he was assassinated, it was like thousands of people that went to see him. It's
Hmm.
no longer just the hecklers or the haters or the hate watchers. It's like people.
It
It
was
was
everybody.
like
It was everybody.
he had to tell everybody to calm down when people were like disagreeing with him because the crowd was so much on his side, and that
Yeah, but he
really.
told both sides. He told his side, people that were with them, to calm down. He told the other side to calm down.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
stayed
He was
so
wonderful
middle.
with being
It was,
respectful towards his audience,
yeah,
you know, towards the people he
yeah.
was speaking to. And it really, you know, honestly, Jay, when we had the last time we got together, oh gosh, it was new or fresher, and it probably hadn't hit me yet what ended up coming over the course of the last like month,
Mm.
and pretty much like the 7 days or 2 weeks after that. Um, Charlie Kirk was a man who believed the things that I believe, and he
Hmm.
was willing to affect the culture like I would try to do if I ever could. And he was killed for that. And that is a proposition that I don't think a Christian has realistically faced in the Western world since World War II, probably, where you actually are being martyred for your beliefs. And I think that it made the temperature for us as believers more serious in the project, you know, which isn't speaking words on the internet as much as I enjoy that. It is, you know, giving the light of God to people through my individual relationships, which is so much more important. That starts in my household, of course, and then with each circle of influence as we move out. I think Charlie Kirk was fortunate to have had an outsized impact, and God really blessed him. Uh, and I am probably I don't think I've ever been affected like this by the loss of a public person.
Yeah,
I certainly know that it's hit me much harder than any other person. And in a way, I think in our modern era, we feel like we know these folks because we do hear. I heard him speak more words in the last 10 months than my own father, you know, before he passed away. So in a way, you do feel like you know these men and women, of course. So it is kind of like more personal, I guess.
yep.
But I mourned, and I really tried to not bring it home. I tried to not tell my wife that I was not doing well or hurting, or I tried really to shield my family from the what was going on inside of me. But I'm much more resolute, and I did a video on this on my channel. But I had like 5 things to tell your kids about Charlie Kirk's death because I think there's also a case to be made that we should address these kinds of things with young people. They should know that their beliefs could cost them. They should know what people are willing to pay for their beliefs. But they should also know some of these wonderful things like if you're young and you believe in a cause, you can make a difference. He was 31, like he's 11 years younger than me, 12 years younger than me. You know, if you're a conservative and you want to try to step out into public and tell your beliefs, that makes you courageous. That's a good thing. And when young
Yeah,
people know that they can make a difference, that their cause is just, that it could cost them something, and that makes them sort of like an outlier or especially courageous to do it. That gives a rise to a whole new generation of people who are much more bold and much more realistic about what the temperature is out here. I would never support anyone doing anything violent, of course,
no,
but I
no.
think
Violence is never the answer. It's never the
the
answer.
fervor that's coming behind Charlie is something that the if someone did like qualify a hit out on him and that's the reason why they did this, they have to be the dumbest piece of something that has ever walked the earth because the Gen Z men are the ones who own the monopoly on kinetic force. They own passion. They own multiplied years of capacity to do great things. You just did them. They did themselves so dirty. Whoever did this, no matter who, whether it's Tyler Robinson or if he was being, you know,
Well, him.
put in there, but regardless of what and who did it, they're so dumb because
Yeah.
they did themselves so dirty
Yeah.
by
And
having
it
the passion inform the next generation.
yeah, and it helped the opposite of what they were trying to do, right? Like it
Absolutely.
helps the conservative side. It helps the
Yeah.
movement. It brought a lot of eyeballs to what he was saying
Yeah.
and the truth he was speaking. And
And then the
it just
rallies
helps.
afterwards were peaceful, which I really appreciated. That vigils broke out instead of violence, and that to me too caught probably a lot of the moderate people between the ears, that they started to see like, okay, this is what it looks like to mourn on the right, and even if you feel like people were being disingenuous in some of that, the light of God and the gospel was shared more times in the last 2 months than has ever been shared in worldwide, probably ever, because of the internet, along with Charlie's death. And that's insane.
Yep.
Like, God takes what was meant for evil and repurposes it for good, for the good of those who
Hmm.
love him. And this is going to be a revolution like we have never seen. And the good news, and I pray that this maintains itself, is that it has been a revolution of peace and you may not agree with the political project that he had going on, but you cannot deny that it has been a peaceful revolution, and I pray that it continues that way.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, Casey, this has been fun as always. I wish we had more gentlemen on with us tonight, but we're gonna keep it short. We're gonna keep it around an hour.
I appreciate you,
I'm
Jay.
gonna
I
wrap.
like I like being able to talk. It feels like I have a friend in the middle of the battleground over there in Washington.
You do, and I'm on the left coast. I mean West Coast.
Yeah, yeah. No, we know
And
what it
so
is.
yeah, no, we do. Bob Ferguson is the absolute worst governor of all time, worse than Inslee, and that's a high bar to hit.
Yeah.
Um,
Congrats.
but anyways, but there's still far many steps below Gavin Newsom. So,
Yeah, yeah. No,
you
yeah.
know,
You wouldn't want to live there.
it's all over
No.
there.
The
No,
next
no,
Democrat
my brother lives
nominee.
in California.
Mm.
Oh my God, yeah. But anyways, before we close, real quick, if you've been thinking about starting your own podcast but don't know where to start, let me save you some time, some frustration, some energy, and possibly failure. I created Pod Launch Coaching to help new podcasters go from idea to launch show in just 8 weeks. You'll get step-by-step guidance on everything from defining your niche to recording, editing, and actually growing your audience. I've made a lot of mistakes. I don't want you to. I see a lot of failed podcasts are just done after 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 episodes and all fail before episode 10. I don't want that to be you. So if you're tired of overthinking and ready to finally hit publish, get your big idea out there because guess what? You probably have a great voice like many of the other failed podcasts do. And that's not going to be you. Head over to Instagram and find me at PodLaunchCoaching. So Pod Launch Coaching. And then while you're there, DM me the word launch. And if you mention that you heard me on the live stream or the recording after the live stream, guess what? I'll offer you an awesome promo for signing up. So let's get your voice out into the world. And with that, Casey, that's all she wrote tonight. This has been fun. I love talking to you. It's always a pleasure. Hopefully next time we get some more gents and I can work out a day of the week that gets a good little group on. So until next
Let's do
time,
it.
guys, enjoy and have a great week. And we'll see you right here next time on or at